In the summer of 1998, a specific kind of moral fever took hold of the United States. The Lewinsky scandal was at top peak, and the national conversation was entirely consumed by the impeachment of a president. Philip Roth watched this frenzy and identified a cultural hunger he called the persecuting spirit. It was a collective drive to aggressively hunt down, expose, and condemn the private lives of others in the name of a public standard. Roth aimed this persecuting spirit at a fictional target, Coleman Silk. At 71, Silk is an esteemed professor of classics who has spent decades as a pillar of the elite Athena College. In an environment obsessed with moral purity, a lifetime of reputation can vanish in a single afternoon. It creates a world where a person's entire history can be overwritten by one public misstep. During a routine roll call, Silk notices two students have never attended his class. He asks the room if they actually exist, or if they are spooks, intending the archaic word for ghosts. The two absent students are black. The college erupts. Silk's colleagues instantly turn on him, launching a systemic campaign that forces his resignation. Under the weight of the scandal, his wife suffers a fatal stroke, a death Silk blames entirely on the witch hunt. The academic community quickly settles on a comfortable narrative. To them, Silk is a simple cliché, a privileged, racist white man whose arrogance finally caught up with him. Silk's neighbor, the novelist Nathan Zuckerman, watches the professor's world collapse. He begins to document the fallout, suspecting that the public's absolute certainty about Silk is built on a massive structural illusion. Following his resignation, Silk begins a passionate affair with Fanya Farley, a 34-year-old cleaning woman at the college. When the town discovers the relationship, they apply a new set of labels. The public sees Fanya as a classic victim, a vulnerable, illiterate woman being exploited by a powerful older man. But Fanya is hiding her own reality. She feigns illiteracy as a mask, shielding herself from childhood abuse and the death of her children, a tragedy she never escaped. She is also stalked by her ex-husband, Lester Farley. Lester is a Vietnam veteran crippled by violent, untreated trauma. He blames Fanya for the loss of their children and views her new relationship as a personal betrayal. These messy, private traumas reveal the failure of the public square. When we reduce human lives to neat categories of victims and villains, we ensure that the actual truth remains hidden. The deepest hidden layer belongs to Coleman Silk himself. Silk is not a white Jewish man. He is a light-skinned African American who has spent 50 years passing as white. In 1946, Silk decided to leave his family and his identity behind. He stepped into a busy, post-war America that was determined to limit the life of a black man, and he chose to simply opt out. Silk's choice was an act of radical individualism. He abandoned his past to escape the societal script written for his race, seeking the freedom to author his own destiny from scratch. The irony of his life is absolute. The man who flawlessly performed a white identity for half a century is ultimately destroyed by a false accusation of anti-black racism. The story reaches a violent end on a frozen mountain road. Lester Farley chases the couple into the night, using his truck to force their car into a targeted, fatal crash. The college community finds a way to make the tragedy comfortable. They ignore the evidence of a chase and write the deaths off as a murder-suicide, branding Silk a deranged killer in his final moments. At the funeral, Zuckerman finally meets Silk's estranged sister, Ernestine. Only then, after Silk is gone, does he learn the truth about the man's racial heritage. This discovery turns everything Zuckerman thought he knew into a fiction. It reveals that despite the absolute confidence we feel when judging our neighbors, we are essentially blind to the reality of their lives. Fanya Farley describes the core of this problem through a concept she calls the human stain. She explains that it is not a specific sin that can be removed through public outrage or political correctness. The stain is the inescapable imprint of imperfection. It is the complex texture of human experience, the desire, trauma, and history that forms our foundation. This directly challenges the persecuting spirit, exposing the quest for absolute moral purity as a destructive, impossible fantasy. In a modern culture defined by public shaming, the human stain is a haunting reminder. Our flaws are inescapable, and our most confident public judgments are almost always built on a profound ignorance of who people actually are.